Hello and welcome. Recording live from the Impact Hub here at the Act Responsible Studios. I am really pleased to introduce today the Good series. This is a series looking at how we create a business case for social impact, because if as marketers we can do that, we can exercise that skill and get better at articulating the economic advantages of social decision making, then we can do more of it, we can justify it internally, and frankly, we can make our jobs more impactful. So I am really excited for this conversation. And today I have two fabulous women joining me. I have Laurie from e.l.f. Beauty, who is the Chief Brand Officer. Thank you so much for joining us. And on my right, I have Lola. Hi, Lola. Thank you. Lola is a global CMO advisor and the author of Responsible Marketing.
Global. I mean, you added that. I love it.
Yeah, why not? I mean, where it can. We're international. So I want to start by just asking you to please give me like a little insight into your professional worlds, right? Like, what's a day in the life? What are some of the priorities for you at the moment? What are some of the things that you really are looking at as you're walking around Cannes and thinking about what you're going to take back into your day-to-day?
Please, you go.
Okay, I'll start. Some of the things that we're really looking at right now is obviously we are a brand that is 22 years young. We like to say that. We're bold, we're nimble. Here at Cannes, we are really filling our cup with loads of creativity, ideas, inspiration on how to be more intentional in what we do and how we actually convey our messages to our community and how we're engaging with them. So this is really an opportunity for us to absorb as much as we can and think about how to refill our cup of inspiration and creativity and pour back in.
And what does it mean to be a chief brand officer? Like, what's your role? What are some of the things you personally do?
What I love about a chief brand officer, I always like to think of it, is that you're really trying to build for the long game. And you're building at what a consumer or a community should be feeling about your brand, how they should be feeling about it, how they should be talking about it. Are they happy to actually share it in their vanity? Are they happy to carry it with them? Are they happy to share the narratives of what they know about e.l.f., being whether it's the fact that we're a clean brand, whether the fact that we're vegan or FTC certified, or the fact that they just love our incredible value and payoff and product payoff.
Yeah.
Love that.
And what about you, Lola? What's a day in the life?
Day in the life, I mean, it varies for me, but as a CMO advisor, as author of a book called Responsible Marketing, I am constantly looking for examples and sharing examples of brands that are doing amazing work at the intersection of social and commercial impact, like e.l.f. Beauty. I mean, and as Laurie knows, I'm a huge advocate and actually am on the Change the Board Game Coalition. So having relationships with brands like e.l.f. and being able to tell other brands who might not get it as much yet that this is their opportunity is really the thing I spend a lot of my days doing.
Yeah.
And that comes through LinkedIn posts, different speaking engagements and workshops, and then obviously just meetings with marketing teams that are looking to do more at this intersection because there is so much power in it. So as much as I get inspiration from the likes of e.l.f. Beauty, they're not actually the type of brands that I need to spend all of my time with because they kind of already get it. I'm looking at industries and brands that might be at the very forefront of this. And if you think about places like even real estate, insurance, like the less sexy brands and industries where there's even more opportunity for this kind of work, that's also where I spend a lot of my time. People might be surprised by that because I look like maybe more a fun brand type of girl, but any industry that is on the precipice of taking advantage of this opportunity, that's where I want to spend my time.
Well, I mean, those less sexy industries is actually a really interesting one because I do think that we're going to talk a lot about the business case for social impact. A really compelling one is bringing humanity and emotion to brands that do struggle from being a little bit less connected and a little bit more emotional. So the less sexy is actually a really interesting topic I'd like to come back to.
Yep.
But before we dive too much into today's main agenda, I also wanted to we've covered the professional sphere, right? You're all about creating emotion in your brand. You're all about education for the industry. So those are your professional worlds. I want to also connect to some of the personal, right? And some of the values that drive you as an individual and a professional. So I'll start to set the tone. I have found this can really remind me of last year when I had just had a baby. And so I was...
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, now she's, not a baby, but last year was really tough. And, I was pumping in between panels and I was dehydrated and it was not going well and it was super stressful. I was carrying these pumps around the corset and it just made me realize how many unseen barriers different people might be having in their professional lives to try and show up and, just be equal with everyone else.
Right.
And that's really driven in me a passion for working mothers and a passion for like not equality, but equity in the workplace. It's something that I found activated in me in the last 18 months.
Right.
So I just wanted to hear, like, what's something that's really giving you passion inside of work or outside of work?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think about the opportunity that we have to lift up historically excluded communities. That's at the core of a lot of why I care about this work. Being somebody who comes from, two of them, as a woman, as a Black person, and even as a I'll name the third, a first generation, citizen of the United States whose family immigrated from Nigeria.
Right.
So there's so many aspects of this work where I see in my own personal life and my family history where we have an opportunity to lift up and provide access that I've been lucky enough to get, but that so many other people don't have. And that's something that I think, especially when I look around Cannes, I'm very proud of Lions for what they've done to make sure that this space is so much more accessible to so many different communities of people that have historically been excluded. And again, you've seen that is actually directly connected to the commercial viability of even this organization, this conference. Like the amount of attention, you have to see that as coordinated to the amount of access. And when we see those two things come together, they always feed into each other. And so it's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, but we're seeing it in real life all around
Drives
us.
relevance, keeps it fresh.
Absolutely.
Brings energy.
Yes.
I was just going to say it's all about the energy. On that piece, as a mother of two daughters, I always feel right now where I am in my life is actually raising generation and raising good humans 2.0. That's what I like to say. So one of the things that I'm very passionate about is how to actually just spread kindness and how to not only raise my daughters right, but also create that model that you can share with others. Right? And it starts with very simple acts, right? For example, we don't tackle bullying by using the word bullying as a piece, but it's more about, have you showed anyone kindness today that actually needed it?
I love that.
That needed it, right? Someone who looks alone or looks a little glum or who hasn't been talking, and my kids are Gen Alpha, but I'm teaching them how to look for these signals now so that they actually become those better humans, so that they can actually spread that vibe and that energy. And that's what you need a lot more of. Sometimes you look at things and it's like you can't tackle this big mountain, but if you start just taking tiny steps and just understand that all of us as humans have an ability to make impact. We want to do, your book, for example, super impactful. You're able to reach many, but if you can just get one person to read your book and take action from it, I think we've done something.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, it's so funny that the last panel I was just on, I met someone who works at Meta who told me she saw me on a panel 2 years ago, and that changed the way that she did her work. And I had no idea, right? But like, it is that one example, that one person you might not even know. But if you're spreading this gospel of good work, you're going to inspire people.
It's
and
contagious.
Change the way they work. It absolutely is contagious.
In the best way possible.
Yes, and that's it's what I love about the e.l.f. beauty case study.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it now? 28 quarters of growth?
29 consecutive quarters of market share and net sales growth.
This is a perfect segue. So I was thinking the first brand we should talk about naturally should be e.l.f. 26% fiscal growth year on year, 29 quarters in a row of consecutive growth. And when we saw the DEI backlash of the last 2 years, especially in the United States, guess whose CEO was on CNN fighting for DEI and showing that the more diverse boards statistically outperform, right?
100%.
That is earned media coverage. That is brand trust. That is all those things that everyone here in the Palais is fighting for, and you guys didn't pay a cent for that. That was earned because of your values.
Right.
So last year, e.l.f. gave $2.5 million to amazing charities, but you didn't just do that. You turned it into a marketing campaign. Right. And I want you to talk about how you did that. Tell us about the campaign.
Oh, I'd love to share it.
And then I want to deep dive into how did you get that signed off?
Yeah, I'd love to share that. So that was actually a campaign anchored around our 4th annual impact report. And while many brands do impact reports, and I hope they continue to do them, sometimes go CSR, impact, multiple different names, but all trying to show the good that you're doing and the positive impact you're making as part of your good or service that you're offering. What we like to do is we've actually realized that, starting with our 2nd annual impact report, that it wasn't just our shareholders that were interested or our board was interested or the industry community. We actually found that our larger community, our social community, our consumers were also really interested. So we leaned in pretty hard on our fourth one to actually create something. And we said, this was about giving an e.l.f. Right? And e.l.f. is another word for that expletive that I will not say here on camera. But give an e.l.f. was an opportunity to actually put the mic in front of someone else. And what I love about that is we didn't take the cause, say, we care about this and we care about this. We were like, what do you care about? And we asked our community, we really turned it to them and said, what do you give an e.l.f. about? And it was everything from social climate, to we care about women's rights. We care about leveling the playing fields for sports. And we took those pieces and those elements and actually made an extension of a campaign that echoed into, you mentioned, it was 2.5% of our last year's profits we actually donate. So when we look at it as a company, we actually talk about what do our elves internally first and foremost care about. Our CEO wants to know what we care about. And then we broaden that to say, we want to know what our community cares about. And we took it to life in a campaign that was very disruptive in this way because, giving the mic to someone else and say, what do you care about? And then actually saying that your values are going to feed back into how I donate to good causes.
Incredible.
And so this has obviously been history, and we've been continuing to do this good work and seeing the momentum and the reaction from our community that e.l.f. really cares. And I think that's what matters, because you're going to see that inspire good change and impact in others.
Right, and cares in a really empowering sense, right?
Right.
e.l.f. cares that you, as the consumer, get
Right.
to do good.
Right.
I think that inclusion of the consumer in your impact is so rare and such a powerful way to do it. No one wants to hear a brand stand on a pedestal and say, "Hey, look how good I am." People want to
Right.
feel like, "Oh, I get to do good when I engage with this brand."
Right.
That's where
Yeah.
the magic happens.
It was really cool. We even took it to a pop-up in New York, where we set a pop-up and we almost created like this phone booth ATM, if you will, where you got to come up to the ATM and actually tell us what cause you wanted. And we took those causes back and then donated towards that.
That's so cool. And I mean, I think there's such an opportunity for brands to see their corporate social responsibility efforts as marketing sort of sparks.
Yeah.
And sort of connect those two roles. And
Right.
there's this weird feeling
Yeah.
sometimes that, well, it's just not, we want to be humble about what we're doing. We
Yeah.
don't want to talk about
Yeah.
our CSR efforts as marketing because like that makes it inauthentic. But it's
Yeah.
like, no.
It matters.
When you talk about it, you're putting your money
Yeah.
where your mouth is.
Yeah.
You're putting your mouth
Yeah.
where your money is, and
Yeah.
you're making sure you're accountable to actually seeing that thing
Yeah.
through. And that creating that accountability through, talking about it out loud in marketing,
Yeah.
I think is really important and a lot more, I think, authentic than sort of being quiet about it so that you
Yeah.
aren't held accountable.
You can have a platform for purpose and for good. And what we've shown is actually you can actually make purpose fun.
Yes.
Right, and just talking about the energy and the vibes and the positive contagion that you can actually create through purpose.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There's a part in the book literally about how it doesn't have to be so boring.
Tell us more.
I mean, we're so aligned in this. It's just like you can be fun, you can be silly. It's funny. In fact, someone I'm on a panel with later today, the chief marketing officer of Bobby, she's quoted in my book, and I talk about in this section where purpose doesn't have to be so funny. It can be irreverent. It can be silly. I talked about how Bobby did the campaign for April Fool's Day. If you guys remember this 2 years ago.
Saw it.
Where they pretended they were releasing a chocolate formula of their baby formula, and obviously like you wouldn't give a baby chocolate, right? But like it was a pretend launch of a pretend product, and they had fun with it. It brought attention to the brand, and it brought attention to the fact that Bobby, of course, is a baby formula that has all natural ingredients, is very, positive in their inclusion of mothers who aren't breastfeeding or might be doing both breast and bottle, and making that a thing that is, feels safe and people aren't feeling judged, and like all of that positive social good that brand stands for. And so but they did it in a funny, cool way. And they continue to do really cool
It was
stuff
irreverent, but it also breaks through, right?
Exactly.
That's what's important. One of our e.l.f. beauty brands, Well People, actually partners with Bobby in a beautiful way, and it's incredible when you can find these partners. And I think when you create a magnetic field around you, or you are actually able to attract brands into the goodness. Like, you know, for example, how I met you is you were in the NACD coalition for our cause to actually double the rate at which women and people of color and diverse people get added onto boards.
So cool.
And that's how I met Lola, and
Yes.
she's one of our graduates, and we're really excited that as part of this program, e.l.f. has contributed to this because we believe that, again, for another purpose cause, this is about quality.
Yes.
But it's talk about putting your money where your mouth
Exactly.
is.
I mean,
It's
that
actually
was
taking that into action.
$10,000 investment in my education to be able to be a board member in the future, and like that's huge. I mean, you did that with multiple people. There's another class that was just selected. I think the biggest class this.
Our biggest cohort to date, 22 women and people of diverse color, and we were able to put them into the board program with NACD and partner with them to actually. It's about board preparation, and when you actually talk about some of these purpose causes, people are like, well, are there results with it, tangible results? Well, 56% of people who actually graduated from this program are actually now in board positions.
That's incredible. What a stat.
So 56% of people who graduated. Yeah, oh, what a stat. Oh.
And believe me,
Well, it's worth repeating that.
In the next 2 years, I'm claiming it. I will have my first, official public board position. I'm already on a nonprofit board.
Time.
Yes.
Heard it here first, folks.
Manifest it.
So.
No, that's incredible. But that impact, I mean, that impact is the social impact. Let's talk about the business impact.
Sure.
So obviously that was the social program, and then layered on top you had the campaign, which won a Silver Lion last year.
Right.
Why
We're
don't you
so
talk
excited
about some
that.
of the work that you've done and some of the business results that were tied to it?
Our campaign, which you're referring to, is our So Many Dicks campaign, is under the chapter of Change the Board Game. Change the Board Game is, I would say, it's not just a movement, it's like a coalition that we're growing in an effort to, again, see more diversity in women on boards. Why? Because boards actually hold the most decision-making power, and they're the highest seats of decision-making power for a company. And what we actually found is we're very proud right now to have a diverse board that reflects 60% women and over 40% diverse. And this is really key for us because when you talked about that 29 consecutive quarters of growth, it's not by accident, it's by intention. Our CEO has designed it so that you can actually see when you have more diverse boards, you are seeing profit and you're seeing better performance. Why? Because it reflects the thoughts, the needs, and the wants of the community that you're actually serving. And this is it's a really beautiful piece when you know that you can make impact with this. So to date, we have over 60 individuals, we have brands, we have nonprofits that are actually part of our coalition. We're continuing to grow it. So this is to talk about that positive impact and the contagion of it's not actually hard to make change. And if you ask our CEO, he'll tell you it's not that hard if you just approach it with intentionality. The campaign, So Many Dicks, I'm sure you saw, Lola.
I mean, all bragged about, wrote about in my book.
It's not, and for those who haven't seen it, it's important to say that it's not that you can't have dicks on board. You just got to make room for others.
Yes.
And by dicks, I actually mean men named Richard, Rich, and Rick, which we found through our research. And we produced a beautiful white paper, not so white paper actually it was called, that actually showed us that there were more men named Dick on boards than underrepresented groups of people.
Yeah. But what an irreverent way of expressing that. Back to the point on it doesn't need to be boring, right? You could have just said, there's more wet men than people of color on boards. No one would have, no one would have.
But also still so inclusive.
So
I think the next line really drove home the inclusion, and so few of everyone else.
And so few of everyone else.
It was like, it's not saying that there shouldn't be people named
Correct.
boards, but there's an opportunity to include everyone else. And how can you argue with that? You really can't.
Right. And I think the message everyone heard with that was, well, pull up a seat for someone else.
Exactly.
So I wanted to dive into some of the business cases, and I'm sure you have so many here, right? Business cases that help build these social strategies into long-term, like strategic pillars of a brand. One that comes to mind for me, just on that point of irreverence, you know the brand Manscaped? They're like a groin groomer. So it's a pretty niche market, the groin groom, but they wanted to expand into the face grooming, which obviously Philips, there's big dominant players, it's a much more lucrative space. They did a fantastic campaign which was called Take a Face Pic Instead, which was all around how unfortunately
got it.
I think it was there you go.
It took a small second.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't take that long for women to figure out what that's about. And it's based on a very sad and very real stat, much like your board stat. It's underpinned by a serious point, which is that there is a astronomical number of young girls that receive an unsolicited explicit picture, and that's a problem. But talking to men in that way, there's plenty of places doing that, but Manscaped did it in this really, really clever way. But what I love about that is, okay, they're addressing an issue of explicit unsolicited pictures, but they're also expanding their market because they're talking about face groomers, which is a huge opportunity for a business like theirs that's a challenger brand in a massive sector. And so I just want to hear some examples, perhaps from e.l.f., perhaps from outside, where social impact builds business.
I'll share one from outside that is really relevant to this week's Cannes, because I think MasterCard was named one of the first most creative brand at Lions or something like that. There's some first award that they won this year, and a campaign that they, not even a campaign, an initiative, a movement, much like Change the Board Game, that was more than just a campaign, that I found truly impressive and always talk about as a cornerstone example of what responsible marketing is, was True Name. I believe it was launched, that initiative, maybe 2-3 years ago, one here at Lions then, and created an expansion in the market to trans audiences for MasterCard and credit card in general by making it easier for you to use your true name versus your dead name on your credit card and not go through all of the red tape that it usually takes in time for people to make that transition, where there's less of a disconnect between how they're presenting at the point of sale and what their credit card says, which can actually create violence at the point of sale. And it's a really big problem. Beyond that, just the emotional weight of every time you bring out your credit card having to be faced with that dichotomy of identity and who you really are. So they approach solving that problem in a way that only a credit card company can. And I think that's one of the key tenets that I want people to think about, brands to think about. What can you natively do because of what your product does?
To your
exactly. To solve a real problem for a historically excluded community, it's going to include them and pull them into wanting to use your brand more. And then also, in my book, we have the Responsible Marketing Index, which has proved through research that we did with Sparks and Honey that actually everyone else who has people in their lives who might have that same issue is more drawn to your brand as well. So it attracts and expands market share both with allies and with people who are in that historically excluded community. And I thought True Name was such a beautiful example of that.
So expanding category and creation of new customer groups, whilst building loyalty and advocacy in that wider sphere.
Absolutely, it just comes with solving a real problem, and that's why that is actually one of the chapters of my book. Not to keep talking about the book, but is solve real problems, because when you
the book, it's brilliant.
When you solve real problems, the board problem, you know what I mean? That's real, and that's authenticity, and that's something that is never going to be called performative or critiqued in that way, because it is real.
So with so many dicks, who were the stakeholders there? And was there challenge from, a CFO or a legal challenge? What are some of the main hurdles, just practically, of going, well, this isn't selling lipstick, so maybe we shouldn't do that, to going, oh no, actually, this is actually a really smart strategic move?
Well, I think the reason it actually landed as well as it did, and I'll tell the story, but it's really because I think when you think about our company, we are so rooted, e.l.f. is so rooted in our ethos and our purpose. We actually know that our purpose is what drives our people, and our people in the company and outside the company, but also that's what powers our performance, and that's what powers new possibilities for us to continue on the good trail, right? And doing really good work in campaigns that make you pause, make you think, stimulate something in you that you want to share, you care to share it. And I think one of the things is that's why I think that's so well received internally, even our stakeholders. Sure, but the first person you got to convince is even our CEO and our CFO and our CHRO. And so what our then CMO, now president, actually did was took the campaign to them at a pivotal point where our stock price was actually we were the top performing stock out of 5,000 publicly traded stocks. And so when that happened, it was like, you got to strike with lightning. So this is a campaign that we actually were working on behind the scenes because of the impact and what we wanted to make. And we struck at the right moment for us when we had credibility to do it. So this was one of the things that I think was mastered by our CMO at a time when we all had firm belief in that, but you needed to make sure the research was there, your insight was there, sure the work was done, the research was properly done, so that you can actually take it to the masses. So we had many stakeholders in there. We actually didn't know when we launched this what people would say with a campaign that was called So Many Dicks. And it was met with 99% positive sentiment across the board. So we knew that we had really laid it, but we didn't know. There was risk in that. There was inherent risk of us taking that, but we were willing to do it for the greater cause and the greater good.
And I mean, there's a term that I like to use called brand bravery. That is that it's very important. Anybody who wants to do this type of work, you've got to embody that spirit. And it helps when you have a defensible problem that you are solving, because even if the community doesn't necessarily receive it the way you intended, you can at least explain your why.
Oh my God, I love what you're saying.
And it makes it virtually a place where risk, yes, is there, but you have that defensibility to back you, and you know that if you need to lean away, you can lean away quickly, and no one's going to be the wiser and remember it. But if it does hit, you can double and triple and quadruple down on it.
Let me build on that, because I think that when you think about the stakeholders and when you think about the people who are carrying this message, it doesn't just fall on, I'm the chief brand officer at e.l.f. Cosmetics, but it doesn't just fall on brand. I actually feel that everyone is a steward, everyone is a brand steward. And when you think about that at e.l.f., I'm very fortunate to have an exec team that everyone is a brand steward, right? And I'm very fortunate to have a board who believes in the work that we do, and they are also brand stewards of e.l.f. So they recognize the voice of that, and it's not just relying on your agency partners to come in and do that work. And I think if we had done that, it would have never taken off and been as successful. But instead you had everyone building that. And it's actually a reflection of the fact that e.l.f. Beauty doesn't have a DEI department. It's actually also up to every single person in the organization to carry that message through. So whether you're a person of color or not, whether you're a minority or not, whether you're a mother or not, whether you're someone living with someone who has a disability or not, you are recognizing all of the shared commonalities we have as people. And I think that's what unites us. When I read your book, that's what it is. At the core, you have to remember we're all human.
Absolutely.
Right? And how can you actually take this purpose and this life that you have into creating something that is meaningful?
It's so important.
I mean, what a beautiful sentiment. And I just love hearing you speak, because you're clearly so passionate about it.
I am very passionate about it.
And that is really what it's all about. And I think that's the beauty of this that we should really end on is like, you know, there are so many business cases to do good, but I think there's also 100%. A personal reason, which is if you can find a way to use your platform, be it your speaking platform and your book and your platform as an influencer, or your platform as a brand and your platform, you know, to actually really invest and build boards, you know, as a woman on a board and as a woman of future many boards, like, wow, you're doing that for us, you know? And so you can be proud of the work you're doing, which means you're better at your job. And all of your team are better at their job.
What's more important than legacy at the end of the day? Like, we're all here for a finite amount of time, and we're here for a good time and not a long time, so let's actually do good while we're here.
Well, I think this panel was a really good time, you know?
This is a great time.
I'm really, really honored that you've both joined us. Thanks. Yeah, it is the good series.
Dive back, Lola.
No, I started Good Loop because I really want Good Loop to be a platform that helps brands turn social strategies into business strategies that help drive media performance. And so I really am honored that you've joined me today and heard some of your insights, some of your, like, amazing to hear behind the scenes like that. Really, like, what a joy. So thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you for signing up and listening live, and to our audience here in the room. That's all from us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.